Welcome to this episode of the Tower Talk, where I answer your questions on building muscle. I had put up a question box on my Instagram stories recently, and I'm just going to dive into all the questions that I got asked the most. Now, if you don't already follow me on Instagram, what are you doing? But make sure you do so that you can ask your questions and I can answer them in a long format just like this. So make sure you follow me at Tara LaFerrara, which is TARALAF as in Frank, ERRARA. I also have the link in the show notes if you just want to easily click on it and press the follow. Now, let's dive into answering your questions on how to effectively build muscle to see the results you want from your workouts. One of the questions that I got asked the most, because it is very trendy. I feel like it's a very trendy thing. And if you haven't heard of either of these classes, I feel like you're living under a rock. But are classes like barre or Pilates not effective to tone and build muscle? So let me just give you a brief background of what those classes are if you have never heard them before. Barre is not like I'm going to the bar to drink some beers. It's barre, Barre. Barre workouts combine ballet-inspired moves with elements of Pilates, yoga, and some strength training. Now, these workouts emphasize lighter weights and higher repetitions, which can improve muscular endurance, improve flexibility, and strengthen smaller, more stabilizer muscle groups. This also helps improve flexibility and balance, which then can enhance posture and muscle control. However, barre typically doesn't provide the same hypertrophy or muscle growth stimulus that heavy weightlifting does, since it relies on this lighter resistance. It's great for increasing endurance, but may not lead to significant muscle mass growth. Now, Pilates, I'm sure you've heard of this, the Pilates girls out there. Pilates focuses on core strength, stability, and mobility. It utilizes body weight exercises, resistance bands, and sometimes equipment like the reformer. I'm sure you've seen videos online of these big football player dudes like sitting in a lunge on the reformer and their legs are shaking and they're like, this is the hardest thing ever. Yes, it is very hard because they keep you in a lunge for like what feels like 9 minutes. Pilates helps core strengthening, which can improve muscle tone definition in your abs and trunk and back. It also improves posture and flexibility, which obviously can have this like overall leaner look. However, same thing with barre, it just doesn't provide enough stimulus to get that muscle growth. The concept of toning is misunderstood, and the fear that lifting weights will make someone bulky is a myth that deserves to be debunked. Now, here is why. First of all, toning doesn't exist as a separate process. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, I talked all about how to actually tone your muscles, which is literally just building muscle and reducing fat. But toning is a term that is widely recognized as these long, lean muscles. It's creating firm, lean, and defined muscles without gaining muscle mass. But in reality, muscle tone is just the result of building that muscle through resistance or strength training and reducing fat to reveal the muscle definition beneath that fat layer. Now, you cannot tone a muscle without actually building it. So what people refer to as toning is actually the combination of gaining muscle and losing fat. You can achieve this look by lifting weights, which helps you increase muscle mass, while fat loss reveals the muscle definition. Now, bulky. Let's talk about that word. Now, bulky, first of all, is subjective. Some people think I'm bulky. Some people think Arnold Schwarzenegger is bulky. It just is relative to the person. But many people, especially women, avoid lifting heavy weights because they have this fear of getting bulky. So I'm just going to share with you a couple reasons, several reasons, why this concern is really misplaced for a lot of women. Number one is hormones. Women lack the testosterone levels necessary to build these large, bulky muscles. Testosterone is a key hormone in muscle growth, and men have significantly higher levels of it. So unless you're following a very specific, aggressive program designed for bodybuilding, the average woman won't bulk up by just lifting bicep curls overnight. Nutrition is a huge component to this as well. Building large amounts of muscle requires a calorie surplus. Calorie surplus is eating more calories than you burn, and specific dietary protocols, such as consuming high amounts of protein. Now, without a sustained calorie surplus and targeted training, the likelihood of getting, quote, bulky is honestly extremely low. And in fact, most women don't even eat enough to support the muscle growth, which is why it takes consistent effort to build muscle, let alone even become bulky. If that's something that you want, that's awesome too. We love the bulk over here. We love taking up space over here. The last thing is training volume. Building significant muscle mass requires lifting progressively heavier weights for a long period of time with high volume and high intensity. Programs designed for muscle hypertrophy and bodybuilding are different from general strength training programs. Most people who lift weights regularly for health and fitness will see increases in strength and lean muscle without having massive muscle growth. Now, of course, if you've listened to anything that I put out on the interwebs, you know that there are so many benefits of lifting weights and strength training instead of barre and Pilates. Not instead of, you can also have both. Lifting weights builds lean muscle, which gives your body that more defined and toned look. Resistance training increases your metabolism by boosting muscle mass, and muscle tissue burns more calories at rest than fat tissue. So having more muscle means you burn way more calories throughout the day, even when you're not working out. This is really great for me because I love the donuts and ice cream. Weightlifting improves overall strength and functional fitness, making everyday activities easier, also while preventing and mitigating injuries. And the last thing is body composition. When you lift weights, you lose fat and gain muscle at the same time. So amazing. This also gives your body this leaner, more sculpted appearance, which is exactly what most people mean when they say they want to, quote, tone up. Now, barre, Pilates versus strength training. Barre and Pilates emphasize core strength, stability, and flexibility, while strength training focuses on building muscle strength and size. The workouts in Broad's app were carefully and specifically designed to ensure that you're building muscle in the most effective way possible to help you change your body composition, which is, again, what you want when you want to be effective in gaining muscle. Question number 2, how do I get quads like yours? What are the best workouts to build muscles in my legs? I feel like I've seen progress everywhere but my legs, and I feel frustrated. Okay. First and foremost, I am going to tell you that I do not have any specific leg days anymore, unless I want like a 30-minute glute pump like I did this morning. I prefer to split my volume across the week with full body workouts. I always do a squat or knee dominant move on Mondays and Fridays. And in general, I'm hitting quads maybe 2 to 3 times a week for maybe 8 to 12 sets in total. Also, I will tell you that I do have great genetics in the leg department. Like I recently saw my biological father a couple years ago. And I was like, do you like lift weights? And he's like, no. And I'm like, oh, like he's got significant quads and he's doesn't work out at all. So there is that. But I was also a sprinter for 8 years, 200, 400. I'm a very explosive athlete. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at someone like myself or someone else on the internet that has these like huge, massive legs and quads. Keep that in mind. Inside the Broads app, you can train like I do. So if your goal is to work quads, make sure you're in the first program in the app, which is focused on squats and pull-ups. And you're going to get so much out of it in the first few months of even actually being in the program. So yeah, quads. Question number 3, how do you find the balance between challenging yourself enough and avoiding injury? I struggle to push myself because I always seem to get hurt. I would really love a solution. Okay, are you ready to hear this? Probably something that you're not doing. It's called mobility. Mobility is the ability of your joints to move freely and efficiently through their full range of motion, allowing you to perform movements with ease and without pain. But it is different than flexibility, which refers to the length of your muscles. Mobility incorporates joint flexibility and strength in those ranges of motion, making it essential for functional movement, athletic performance, and injury prevention. So if I were to tell you like to do mobility and want to add it into your routine, what would you do? Maybe a basic routine would be like dynamic stretches in your warm-up and improvement range of motion. Mobility is in every Broads workout that we do. I also have full follow along mobility videos that you can kind of do at any point too in the resources section. But really great thing to add just like right away before your workout, do a 10-minute mobility before you get started. Mobility training can be anywhere between 5 and 15 minutes. Again, it can be before your workout, it can be after your workout. Like if you're not watching this on YouTube, you wouldn't know that I'm actually doing ankle circles right now. I'm doing mobility as I am talking to you over this podcast. And if you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? How many movements? Remember, all in the Broads app, I do all this for you, but start with maybe like 4 to 6 exercises and think of your major joints. So your ankles, your hips, your T-spine, typically your shoulders and your wrists. Obviously there's more in there as well, but those are your main ones that you can work through. And then maybe like test yourself. If you're like, okay, I can't squat without lifting my heels, ankles could be a great place to start and hips could be a great place to start. I can't put my hand all the way over my head without my shoulder creeping up and I can't get it fully straight. Cool. Shoulder and T-spine would be a really great place to start. So if we're looking at dynamic versus more active mobility, dynamic involves moving joints and muscles through their full range of motion with controlled movement. This is ideal before workouts as it increases blood flow and warm up the muscles. So something like leg swings, hip circles, arm circles, stuff like that. Now, static mobility is a little bit more on the functional range conditioning side where you actually hold a stretch, but then you actively push against it. So if I'm in a passive squat, which is a yogi squat, I could actually actively pull my toes off the ground. Like I wouldn't really be able to get them, but I could work in some active ranges of motion there. Like the most basic mobility routine right now, hip circles. You can do the standing. It's kind of like you're doing a hula hoop. Cat cow, if you've ever been in a yoga class, it's the flexion and extension of your spine. A walking lunge with a twist, actively twisting through your T-spine. Child's pose, or maybe child's pose walking from one side to the other. And then some sort of hip flexor stretch, like a runner's lunge, a couch stretch, something like that, where you can be active in it as well. There are so many people I know that skip mobility because it doesn't burn calories. Like it's not an actual workout. It makes every workout feel better and more effective. It is the way to mitigate injuries. And with mobility, you can push yourself even harder without hurting yourself. It is the way to mitigate injuries. And with mobility, you can push yourself harder without hurting yourself. Now, the other piece to this question of how can I actually make sure that I'm not hurting myself or pushing myself past where I do hurt myself. And the other piece of this is improving your technique and mastering your form that works for you and your body. Some people get hurt because they're trying to push their weight without focusing on their form first. They think maybe they have the movement down and then they start to lift and go heavier before they're actually ready. So check in with yourself. Do you feel all the muscles that should be working in that exercise? Are you hitting full range of motion for you and your body? Those are things to check in before you just pack on the weight. Form always comes first. Working with a coach is a really great way to make sure that you're mastering your form, but also it's a really awesome way to see your progress over time because then you're lifting in the same way every single time. Now, inside Broads, I show you how to do the exercises correctly with written descriptions, gifts, substitutions with modifications, and a whole exercise library walking through how to do specific exercises. Question number 4, what should I be focusing on first, losing weight or gaining muscle? And what does that actually look like? Whether you should focus on losing weight or gaining muscle first kind of depends on your goals, body composition, and preferences. So without knowing you at all, here's kind of an overview to help guide your decision. Now, first, we're going to assess your goals. If your goal is to improve overall physique and get leaner, focusing on fat loss may be the priority. If your goal is to increase strength, shape of your body, or build a more muscular physique, prioritizing muscle gain may make more sense. Now, if you're looking for a more balanced approach, which is so much of what we do in Broads and how I work with clients, you can work on body recomposition, which means losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time, though it can be a lot slower. Now, if you're focusing on fat loss, this looks like a calorie deficit. You need to consume fewer calories than your body burns. This doesn't necessarily mean that you're starving yourself. It means you're eating just slightly less while prioritizing nutrient-dense food. This also includes strength training. Keep lifting weights to preserve your muscle mass. As you lose fats, you can incorporate some moderate cardio and maintaining a high protein intake to prevent muscle loss while in that calorie deficit. Now, if you are leaner and you're looking to add muscle mass, or you feel weak and you want to build a more powerful body, prioritizing muscle gain could be your best bet. This looks like a calorie surplus. To build muscle, you do need to eat more calories than your body burns. Progressive overload, lifting those heavier weights over time, increasing the volume to challenge your muscles and stimulate growth. Of course, strength training, focus on compound lifts and working each muscle group at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then consuming plenty of protein to support muscle growth and repair. If we were to put those both together and have body recomp, this approach is slower, but can be very effective, especially for beginners or people returning to fitness after a break. So this looks like a slight calorie deficit or maintenance. You're kind of keeping your calories around maintenance or at just a slight deficit, enough to lose fat while you still have enough energy for muscle growth. Strength training, of course, following a consistent progressive strength training program. Protein intake, always important, eating plenty of protein to support muscle repair and fat loss. And then, of course, focusing on recovery. Sleep and recovery are super critical to ensure that your body has the resources to lose fat and gain muscle simultaneously. Now, you might not see drastic changes in weight, but you will notice overall leaner, more defined physique over time. And then your body composition will improve as you build muscle and lose fat, but patience is the key to this because this does take time. So, okay, with all that in mind, assessing your goals, knowing what you have to do, what should you do first? If you are at a higher body fat percentage and want to get leaner, fat loss should come first with a maintain of your muscle mass. If you're relatively lean and want to build strength and size, prioritize muscle gain. And then if you're somewhere in between or want a balance of both, go for that body recomp with a slight deficit or maintenance and focusing on that progressive overload with strength and protein intake. Question number 5, when I try to gain muscle, it feels like I just gain fat. Why is that? Oftentimes, when you're increasing your calorie intake to build muscle, you unknowingly overshoot the amount of calories that your body needs. This can lead to fat gain, especially if your workouts aren't structured in a way that triggers muscle growth. It's not just about eating more and moving your body, there is science behind building muscle effectively. Now, this typically happens when you work out without a plan. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that just going to the gym will lead to muscle growth. But if your workouts don't include key elements like progressive overload, the right exercise selection, and the proper balance of sets and reps, you may not be pushing your muscles hard enough to grow. And then as a result, the extra calories you're eating to quote bulk can end up being stored as fat because your workouts aren't challenging your muscles enough to see those calories for muscle building. Another reason why you might feel like you're gaining fat instead of muscle is that you're gaining weight too quickly. Muscle does take time to build, so a big calorie surplus often leads to more fat than muscle gain. Aiming for that slow and steady weight gain, about zero point 0.5 to 1 pound per week, is way more ideal to minimize fat gain while still building muscle. Now, this is again why following an effective workout plan is so important. There is a difference between simply just going to the gym and going without a structured program. And this is where Broads can help. It can take the guesswork out of your workouts and provides a plan that gets you big results. You just open the app, follow along with the program, and focus on progressing each week by increasing your rep sets or weights. And I do that all for you. Stick to the plan, trust the process. You will see results. Question number 6, should I always aim for 8 to 10 reps? Anything higher won't help me build muscle, lower reps, higher weight, better than higher reps, lower weight. So I kind of briefly talked about the higher reps in the barre and Pilates. So let me just share with you the ideal rep range for hypertrophy, strength, or endurance based on how we structure our training. And I will just let you know that in Broads, we do have different rep ranges just based on where we're at on our programming. So the 8 to 12 rep range is hypertrophy. This is often considered the sweet spot for muscle growth or hypertrophy. It strikes a balance between challenging your muscles with moderate weight and creating enough volume to stimulate growth. This rep range is ideal for building muscle size because it can cause muscle damage and metabolic stress, which are key triggers for muscle growth. Now, if we look at those higher rep ranges, that is for endurance, right? Anything above 12 reps or 12 to 15 is typically aimed at improving muscular endurance rather than pure muscle size. You can still build muscle with higher reps if you're lifting close to failure, but high rep sets might be beneficial for you if you're working on those smaller muscle groups. You'll see in Broads, we do cable face pulls and rear delt flies and reverse flies where we're going really light, but we might be on that 12 to 15 to 20 rep range. Now, the lower rep range is strength and muscle building. Rep ranges of 1 to 5 are usually associated with strength training as they involve lifting heavier weights and focusing on developing maximal force. Now, although this rep range is primarily for building heavy mass strength, lifting heavier weights in low rep ranges can also lead to muscle growth, especially in combination with hypertrophy focused sets. So having that mix of lower rep range and that hypertrophy 8 to 12 is a really great place to be. So again, which is the best for muscle growth? You can actually build muscle in a variety of rep ranges, not just 8 to 12, but the key is progressive overload, continuously challenging your muscles by either increasing weight, reps, or intensity over time. Again, we do all of that for you in the Broads app. We have our monthly workouts, but each week the intensity changes, some of the exercises changes, some of the tempo and sets and reps do. Question number 7, how long does it take to see results? And at what point should I be changing my approach because, quote, it's not working? Now, seeing results from your workout depends on several factors like your training program, nutrition, consistency, and starting point. Typically, noticeable changes in strength, endurance, and body recomp take at least 4 to 8 weeks. However, here's what to expect and when you might need to rethink your approach or how things are going. Again, it totally depends on your starting point, how consistent you are, and how much you're actually challenging yourself in the gym. But early stages are usually 1 to 4 weeks. You might see some strength gains, especially if you're new to weightlifting. This is usually due to neurological adaptations and your body's learning to lift more efficiently and effectively. Also, you're going to notice energy and mood changes. Many people feel more energized, sleep better, and have a boost in mood even within the first few weeks of being consistent with their workouts. Some people get a little bit tired because their body isn't used to this newness, but that is typically, especially if you're new, starting off with a 2 or 3 day a week plan is way better than jumping into the 4 day a week plan. Usually on the visible results, you'll see between 4 and 8 weeks, sometimes 12 weeks. This is including muscle definition. You might be able to see some muscle definition, see some slight changes in your body recomp, especially if you are combining effective workouts with proper nutrition, making sure that you're fueling yourself and eating enough protein. You might also see some fat loss here if you're eating in a calorie deficit and working out regularly. It starts to become noticeable all around this time as well. And then significant muscle growth, I would say at the minimum 3 months, but usually a little bit longer than that. Again, depends on your starting point. You should be able to see some, especially if you're following a program with progressive overload and eating enough protein and calories to support your change. So, when should you actually change your approach? Now, if you have been consistent for 8 to 12 weeks and aren't seeing any results, whether it's in strength, muscle definition, fat loss, confidence, self-esteem, energy, mood, blah, 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 and you're being super consistent, it may be time to tweak some things. And here are just a few reasons why it may not be working and how to adjust it. Number one, not progressing. Like if you're lifting the same weights week over week without increasing intensity, your muscles won't be challenged enough to grow. So make sure that you are gradually increasing your weights, reps, or sets because of progressive overload. Another thing here is too much or too little food. So if you're trying to build muscle but aren't seeing growth, you might be not eating enough. On the flip side of things, if you're aiming for fat loss, not seeing results, you could be eating too much or just not in a calorie deficit. You could also have an inconsistent routine. This is huge and something I see all the time. If you're skipping workouts or not following a structured plan, progress will be slower. Consistency is key to seeing results. And honestly, staying on the same routine for too long, your body adapts to the stress of the exercise over time. If you've been doing the same workout program for 2-3 months at a time, it's time to switch things up, change your rep ranges, exercises, intensity, and so forth. But broads make it really easy to stay on track with a structured plan, focuses on progressive overload, gives you a variety of workouts to keep challenging your body. And we do actually change workouts every 4 to 5 weeks. Also have deload and recovery weeks in there. Stick to the plan, trust the process as always, but remember, results do take time. Question number 8. Can I build muscle at home with dumbbells ranging from 5 to 35 pounds? This feels very specific with the weight that she gave me. But so absolutely, you can build muscle at home with dumbbells. While heavier weights can be beneficial and you're probably going to want them at some point, you can still achieve significant muscle growth by effectively utilizing the weights you have through proper exercise, form, and progressive overload. So a couple things to note here. Exercise variety is important, focusing on compound lifts like squats, lunges, deadlifts, presses. This is going to promote overall muscle growth while engaging multiple muscle groups. Progressive overload, of course, to build muscle, you need to continuously challenge your muscles. Now, if you are maxed out a certain weight, you can definitely reduce rest times. You can increase time under tension, so put some tempo into it. A squat for 10 reps, just up and down, is a lot different than a tempo for like a 3-2-0-1. Like a 3 seconds down, a 2-second hold at the bottom, explode up, and then 1 second between the next rep. That can really challenge you, and you can see a lot of progress there as well. And then workout structure, creating a balanced routine that incorporates upper, lower, core, full body workouts, aiming for those 3 or 4 strength sessions a week, focusing on different muscle groups each day. So of course, Broads is an at-home and gym app. There is a lot of flexibility to it. So program accessibility, whether you're at home with your dumbbells or at the gym with more equipment, Broads offers a variety of programs that cater to your environment. You can easily follow along with the program designed with what you have. Broads helps you track your progress over time. So whether you're at home or in a gym, you can log your weights, reps, sets, making it easier to see improvements and adjust your workouts for continued muscle strength and growth. I also have a notes function within every exercise. So you can write down how you felt during that exercise. If you use 2 different sets of dumbbells, like there's a lot in there that you can put as well. There's a big community support. Working out at home can sometimes feel like super isolating, but with Broads, you have access to a community of like-minded individuals, and you can share your progress, seek advice, and stay motivated through the app's community features. And then, of course, consistency and structure. Following a structured plan through Broads ensures that you're not only consistent, but incorporating the right exercises and rep range for muscle building, no matter where you're working out. So, if this was helpful and if you love this episode, thank you so very much for listening. Maybe we'll do these again if you enjoyed it. Q&A is really easy for me because I've got the questions. I just have to give you the answers. So if you loved this, please share it out, like it, let me some notes so that we can keep putting these out for you. Thank you so much.